are continuing practically incessantly. Also, the enemy targets by shelling the residential blocks of frontline settlements. That leads to the destruction of infrastructure and also kills and wounds civilians. The negative trend to broaden the geography of active combat is still there. The gunmen are shelling previously relatively calm parts of the confrontation line, and the enemy continues their propaganda campaign to discredit the anti-terrorist operations forces in order to disguise the aggression. In Mariupol sector yesterday, the combat action was only in the Shirokino settlement. Besides the small firearms, they used 122 cannons and jet-propelled multiple launchers Grad P. In the Donetsk sector, the enemy fire on our positions with the use of heavy armaments was in the vicinity of the airport for the entire day. In the suburbs of Horlivka, the situation was also far from calm. They tried to find weak places, weak spots in our defense in western, northern, and eastern suburbs of Horlivka. The same is happening in Marinka district, where they have shelled our positions next to 5 different settlements. In Novomikhailivka, they have launched a full salvo from Grad at our positions, and then they used tanks to shell our positions. In Krasnogorivka, a local resident was wounded. The movement through the front line, across the front line by Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Donetsk, Mariupol highways, and also in back is closed. And the accident at the gas pipeline in the Donetsk region was mended, so Mariupol, Volnovakha, and Avdiivka are again with gas. In Lugansk district, the facts of the violation of the regime of silence from the enemy's side were detected on the broad part of the front from Popasna to Shestya, and not less than 30 missiles from Grad were launched at Troitska. They were firing from the occupied city of Stakhanov, which is less than 20 kilometers away from Troitska. Also not calm the situation was in Krymsk and Novotoshkivsk, where they have shelled our positions from mortars. And yesterday, Ukrainian repair worker was wounded next to Popasna. Yesterday, in the anti-terrorist operation zone, our bodyguards and military have detected 25 flights of enemy drones. As a result of combat actions over the last day, of the more active combat actions, we lost 2 Ukrainian fighters, another 20 were wounded. New professional seamen and sailors are joining the Ukrainian Navy. Yesterday, the frigate Getman Sagaidachny saw the ceremony of the handing out of diplomas to the graduates of the Black Sea flotilla of young sailors. They have also commemorated the seamen who died while protecting the independence and territorial integrity of Ukraine.
And our soldiers continue to upgrade their skills in the Zhytomyr Special Training Center. They made some raids eliminating the defense lines of the conventional enemy. Special attention given to the elements of the tactical medicine and the tactical general speaking. They took into consideration the experience when our guys actually were entrapped, or they were killed or injured by the wire traps or mines. involved were the servicemen who recently joined the Ukrainian army during the mobilization. The head of the general staff, Colonel General Viktor Muzhenko, was observing those training exercises, and other commanders of the Ukrainian army. Ukraine continues to establish the friendly ties with the local citizens in the east of Ukraine. There was a concert held using the orchestra and the musicians, or the military musicians actually. They traveled over this area to support the local citizens, the morale, and so forth. The local residents came with their children. This concert demonstrated in the eastern Ukraine, which controlled by Ukrainian authority, that there is peace reigns there, and the army is always with the people. Also, the artists support our servicemen since in June 13, the collective of the Poltava Theater, named after Mykola Gogol, visited the local servicemen, and they actually offered their attention a special concert staged by the women or the lady actors of this theater, and they were received with much attention and applaud. Today I would like to give you the story about one of the frontline soldiers, the senior driver of the attached sanitary company, who has a nickname Cossack. Actually, his appearance tells that, and he's a real outcrop of the real Cossacks. For 9 months, he's been driving a sanitary ambulance, and together with other medical officers, he tries to save the servicemen, because the sooner you actually can take this wounded soldier to the hospital, the more chance he has for survival. And he actually covered a lot of kilometers trying to save his countrymen, risking his life. Alexander Turan, every day, it proves that the Ukraine line is still reaching the very brave and courageous Cossacks. This exhausts actually my today's information. Should you have any questions, I'm ready to take those. You mentioned that the geography is going to extend in the area of Etio. Do we understand you correctly that there are 2 civilians were killed? Those are no more civilian victims or casualties? Actually, we give the information what we could identify those people. But as for the casualties among the civil population, this data comes from the civil and military administrations who take this in consideration, and they have a well-established network of medical and medical treatment establishments. That's why we do not have the accurate data for the civil population. As for the geography, the shelling and bombardment, it's very difficult to enumerate all the populated areas or villages or small towns, because even the not really extensive shelling is fraught with a very big threat to the lives and the health of our citizens. If you're talking about Opetna, I actually gave you a number of different populated area. By the way, in Opetna, the majority of the wounded persons come from Opetna or near Opetna, 12 persons. Yesterday was a very difficult day for our guys. And the fact that the militants became more active means that very quickly, invisibly, and unexpectedly, they cannot actually do that. If you're talking about the real wide range or the wide broad scale attack, the peak of the intensity, well, it's difficult to say whether we reach that or not. But anyway, we continue to stick to observe the Minsk agreements, and in case of the obvious attacks, onslaught on our positions, we respond with our fire. But the provocative shelling can actually continue, and they expect us to be more active, using to use their artillery, for them to say that we actually torpedo the Minsk agreements. If you're talking about the scale of the shelling, how big they are, I do not have the exact figure, but over 80 per day for sure.
Legal Business Info. Do we know what will happen to a Russian mercenary who was detained by the right sector next to Shirokina? The right sector says that Yarosh will decide his fate, but what will happen in reality? Everybody who's detained on the territory that's being under control of the Ukrainian authorities, they will be handed over to the Security Service of Ukraine, who has all the authority to investigate and conduct interrogation and to get information from those who are detained. We are very grateful to the right sector, as they are again proving that Russian mercenaries are waging war against us, people with Russian passports. And for you to understand, it's not necessary to mention Metro Yarosh here, because any military unit, especially a group of reconnaissance people who detain a mercenary or a gunman, every time, first of all, hand him over to their commander. The commander then informs corresponding bodies, and then they pass those people over to the special services. I haven't been to Kiev for almost a year. My first question is, how many Ukrainian soldiers have died after the second Minsk agreement? And how many have died in June? And how do you think the situation will develop? Of Krushinsky, Toronto, Canada. The matter is that because we almost every day lose our people, I cannot tell you the precise figure how many people we lost after the Minsk agreements, and this would have been very incorrect, because in this case we would forget about those who died after the first Minsk agreements. If you need this, we will prepare information for you from the beginning of the anti-terrorist operation until today. And if we rephrase your question, maybe it will be like when the conflict will end. It will end at any rate. It cannot be eternal. It cannot last forever, but whatever relates to Ukrainian authorities and our military, we will do everything possible so that this conflict ends as soon as possible. And this pertains to military, economic, and military questions that our guys are doing every day now. And people also work in the European Union. There is no unequivocal answer to this, but we do know that we will win, and we will, of course, liberate Donbass. Thank you very much. Our next report from the anti-terrorist operation zone will be tomorrow. Our working day is over, and our schedule for tomorrow will be placed on site before the day ends. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. All the best.